Okay, there's Vygotsky's theory right there in that one picture. And we'll take a look at that real closely, see what's happening. You can probably imagine it. And then we'll start talking about what is it that Vygotsky was seeing and how did he theorize what was going on and how often it goes on. Vygotsky had this idea that, well, maybe Piaget didn't have everything that's going on in a young child's life in the area of cognitive development. Maybe there's something else that has to do with the social processes that are going on during all this time and what can be learned from social interaction. So Vygotsky had the idea that the child is internalizing the world. There's this world out there, and the child is soaking up this environment by interacting with it, especially interacting with other humans. And in the soaking up process and in the interacting process, some tremendous learning is going on. And it's going on because of observation and imitation. Okay? The child observes what other humans are doing, especially older ones, and then tries to imitate. It seems to be a very, very natural kind of tendency, this idea of imitation. So Vygotsky really focused on this to see where does it lead. Vygotsky also had this idea, well, as the child is soaking up the world, observing, trying to imitate, the child is, shall we say, talking to herself. Not necessarily even in words at some stage, but just this self-talk as concepts are being formed. And that self-talk is a major part of the process of forming the concept. What Vygotsky is probably best known for is this idea of scaffolded learning with the help of older peers or adults, this social learning idea. So let's think of the parent, the older brother or sister, the preschool teacher. Somebody is going to be the teacher here in this situation. And this teacher, formally a teacher or informally a teacher, this teacher assesses, oh, look what this child is trying to do and is not getting it right, is failing, or doesn't even see the possibilities. I will step in and help. But in order for me to really help effectively, I need to assess where it is this child is lacking in some skill or some concept. So what Vygotsky called this idea is focusing and figuring out what is the zone of proximal development. Where is this child at this moment in the learning process, and what would be the next step? Where can I help fill in a gap, teach a new concept, so the child can progress and get on to the next stage of learning? So the teacher in this situation would set up what he called mediated learning experiences. In other words, the teacher manipulates the environment so that the child suddenly can have the idea, oh, look what you did. You manipulated the environment and got that result. Hey, I'll try that too. So by setting the environment and then watching the child struggle and finally attain that, and maybe then manipulating the environment, let the child experiment, and we scaffold learning in these stages that all have to do with social interaction. So for instance, let me just give an example here of Vygotsky's theory in action. Little toddler is playing with blocks, and big sister comes along and notices that the blocks are kind of just scattered. And big sister thinks, Oh, I bet I know what he would like. And she goes over and shows the toddler, look, I can take one of these blocks and put it on top of a block, and take another block and put it on top of that block. See what I can do? And the toddler looks, wow, big sister, wow, you're really something. Let me try that. And of course, clumsy at first, the child slowly learns, oh yeah, I can do this. And that's the social learning that Vygotsky was talking about. Of course, tomorrow, the child will use that same information, that same new knowledge, to stack a bunch of books on the floor, taller and taller, and so he can climb up and get into the cookie jar. Yum. Okay, but that's Vygotsky. And you'll want to review this, and don't be surprised when you review this in supplemental material, you might find people giving slightly different definitions. It seems that the world misunderstands Vygotsky in various ways or emphasizes different things about his theories. Don't be surprised at that. But basically, you need to learn his terminology and what his basic idea was about social learning. So go on to the questions, check the supplementary material, review this video, and get out there in Vygotsky.